In this episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks, we have Intel and AMD Love Child chip gets benchmarked, killer gaming rigs, coin madness, and more highlights from CES 2018. Next. Hey, welcome back to the webcast we affectionately refer to as Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks. I'm Dave Altavilla, your host, and I have with me, as always, Marco Chiappetta and Paul Lilly. Gentlemen, we had a few gremlins in the start today, so we're a couple minutes tardy getting off here, but how we doing? How we doing so far this week?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain.
Thirsty Thursday, looking forward to Friday, Paul?
Oh, yeah, always looking forward to Friday.
Oh yeah, we had some last minute snags in the audio side of the stream here, so getting off a little bit tardy, but it's good to be back on the interwebs. We are slowly recovering from CES 2018, but lots to talk about this week. Still lots of great stuff bubbling in the headlines and in the reviews at Hot Hardware and certainly around the web. So let's dive right in, gentlemen. We posted up this week, if you haven't stopped by the site, our best of CES 2018 article. It's a wrap up we do every year when we get back from sunny Las Vegas. Marco and Chris from our team were out there last week, and we have rounded up the best laptops, the best systems, the best mobile devices. We really just sort of lasso them all and put front and center what we feel were the highlights of the show. And every year, you know, we walk into the show with certain expectations. Sometimes we're left a little bit flat, but I think this year, Marco, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this year we had some really nice additions, some new announcements of new technology that really sort of brought something to the table that gave us a little bit of a wow moment on the laptop side of things, and we'll go through it real quick and then step into some interesting desktops as well. On the laptop side of things, we had, of course, the announcement of Intel and AMD's collaboration on a hybrid chip that is comprised of Intel's 8th generation processor with AMD Radeon RX Vega M graphics on board. Two notebooks we got hands-on time with was the Dell XPS 15 2-in-1 you see there, as well as HP's Spectra X360 15 2-in-1. And we definitely were impressed with those machines. Great looking machines with some serious horsepower. We'll be looking at actual benchmarks of that later on in the show. But we also had a nice announcement from the folks at NVIDIA, who also corralled their OEM partners along with them for BFG displays, or big format gaming displays, BFGD. And these are 65-inch 120 hertz panels with onboard NVIDIA Shield streamers and tuners, as well as NVIDIA G-Sync for jitter-free gaming, buttery smooth gaming, locked frame rates, adaptable frame rate to sync up the monitor with your graphics processor or GeForce processor. LG had an 88-inch 8K OLED display. That was pretty fabulous. EVGA had some really cool quick disconnect liquid cooling, and AMD stepped out with the 2nd generation of Ryzen processors. So lots of great stuff on tap at CES this year. Lots of new products coming out as we get into later here in Q1 and into the spring that we're looking forward to. But we saw a bevy of killer gaming rigs, right, Marco? We saw some really impressive stuff from the folks at Maingear and Origin, and Paul, you even looked at something from Xidax lately. Why don't we start with the folks from Maingear and talk about what they've got going on with the F131 gaming PC, right?
Yeah, so the F131 was gorgeous. One thing about this year's CES, at least it seemed to me, maybe because of the companies I was meeting with, there was definitely some excitement around the PC. You had some really cool new mobile devices and some really powerful, just insanely modded out desktops. Now, the Maingear F131 with Apex cooling that we picked as one of the best of CES, This thing is nuts. So you really have to see them in action and see the photos to appreciate. I'm going to use the word beauty. These are just absolutely gorgeous machines. And, you know, the kind of craftsmanship and attention to detail that Maingear is known for just really shines through in these systems. And the Apex cooling system is a proprietary thing that was developed in-house along with a partner. I'm forgetting the partner's name. It was Bit something or other, but this is really nuts. So there's dual water pumps, this giant reservoir that sort of takes up the whole front quarter of the case, and it's a decorative reservoir. It's not just some ugly tube. It's got flow sensors and temp sensors and separate chambers for CPU and GPU cooling. So you couple like those cool features with the nice Maingear case, with the impeccable build quality, with the either the rigid tubing or, you know, color tubing, whatever you pick. These systems are completely customizable, and you end up with these super powerful systems that are, you know, works of art. If you ask me, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
That thing's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, the F131 with Apex cooling, I was impressed with that. It blew me away that you know, how they had the dual pumps in the cooling block and the flow meters, and they're feeding CPU and GPU on that. So that was impressive. Marco, I was just switching out, looking at the Facebook page, trying to see if we were streaming there. Were you talking more about the BFGDs or what? Sorry about that.
I wasn't mentioning them at all. I was strictly talking about the Maingear F131.
Yeah. No, I didn't know if you segued there because I was tuning into Facebook trying to see what our settings look like. Anyways, yeah, no, that Apex cooling system is pretty innovative. It's custom for Maingear, and I'm impressed with it. I'd like to see how it holds up under duress. I think you know, in premise, you know, feeding the CPU and GPU with dual lines, you know, individual lines of cool liquid from the block. You know, that sounds really good in practice. They've got dual pumps in there to push to amp up the flow. And so that's what you wonder about, is how's the flow going to be in that setup? Because it looks like a nice, a really cool labyrinth of cooling, you know. So it'll be interesting to see how that performs in practice. I can't wait to get it in here, and hopefully we'll hook up with the guys at Maingear and get a test system in. Paul, what'd you think about that thing?
Yeah, it's a great looking rig, of which we've seen quite a few lately, especially at CES. But even before and now in the days after, we're seeing a lot of nice custom machines. Another one that we saw was from Origin PC, their new Millennium. I say new, but it's an existing line that they've refreshed, but they do have some new bits for this year. Let me look just one second. They've made a bunch of changes to their custom case. One of my favorites is the side windows on there, how they open. They're closed magnetically, so they just swing right open. It's, as far as the cases I've played with, that's probably the easiest one that I've come across to get into. Which, you know, it's not a huge deal if you don't plan to upgrade or anything like that. But for tinkerers like us, that is a big deal. I actually have one of these in-house that I'm working on a review as we speak. I've run a bunch of benchmarks on it. I need to take some pics and write up the text. But we've put it through our gauntlet of benchmarks. I don't want to give too much away. I will say that it's fast and it's a really, really nice system. And we'll get into that shortly, so stay tuned for that. What I can talk more about is a custom machine that we reviewed from Xidax, which they've been around a little while. They're a relative newcomer to the field, but they've been around a few years. This is our first time looking at a Xidax machine, at least officially. I don't know if you guys have looked at anything off the record before, but they sent us a custom build inside one of Thermaltake's really nice cases. I think it's the View 71. It's one of Thermaltake's brand new cases. It has tempered glass on the sides, the front, and the top. It's a gorgeous case, and it's really designed for what they did with it, which is to showcase your build skills and to do some nice neon lighting inside, do the water cooling and that stuff. The configuration they sent us was decked out. It had an Intel Core i9 7900X processor. That's a 10-core 20-thread chip. It had two GeForce GTX 1080 Ti cards in there, 32 gigabytes of RAM, a 512 gigabyte NVMe SSD, along with the 2 terabyte hard drive. and a 1,000 watt power supply. Then other standard bits, USB ports, Wi-Fi, all that good stuff. What impressed me beyond the build quality, I don't know if you can bring up the pictures there that we have. It's a nice clean build. When the lighting's on, they use clear liquid in the tubing, but when the lighting's on, it looks like it's kind of like a neon flow, depending on what color you have in there. So it's not, even though it has RGB lighting, it's not gaudy like you might think, unless you set it up that way, which you could. They didn't. It's just a really, like Marco was saying, it's a showpiece in addition to a PC that you're going to want to have out there and people are going to want to look at. And of course, with that amount of horsepower inside, it was fast. We have all the benchmarks on there if you want to read through our article, but it posted as you think it would for a machine with two 1080 Ti cards in there. But one thing that really separates Xidax apart too, that I didn't know going into this, is they offer a lifetime warranty on all the hardware inside. So if your motherboard goes, if the water cooling goes, the processor goes, whatever, they're going to replace it for life, not just lifetime tech support and that stuff. They back the hardware, forever. And that's a standard warranty option. You don't pay extra for that. To my knowledge, I don't know of any other system builder that offers that. So that's kind of a neat thing they're doing. So yeah, hopefully we'll after this first rodeo with them, we'll get to see some more systems from them in the future. See what else they can do.
Interesting stuff. We keep bouncing between. Unfortunately, hopefully we're not confusing folks too much in the audience. We're bouncing between the Xidax X8 gaming PC and what you're looking at. Actually, we're looking at there for a little bit was the Origin Millennium, and the Xidax is the green one, the green, I should say, green illuminated, green cooled machine. If you saw that. And I'm just looking at the Xidax now. I want to come back to the Origin PC as well in a little bit, but talking about Xidax, Paul, really nice looking machine. It looks like, what's the cooling like in that thing? Because what I'm looking at here, it looks like a very traditional dual hose water pump, nothing crazy fancy with, hardline tubing or anything like that. But what's the cooling like there?
It looks fancier than it is. It's basically an all-in-one cooling kit with the 360 millimeter radiator, and that's attached to the fans in the front, and then the tubes go over to the CPU. It's from AlphaCool, so it's not overly fancy. Like you said, it doesn't have the hard tubing. It's not a custom loop with the separate pump and everything else. It's just an all-in-one solution, but it looks really, really nice in the case with the lighting. When you look on the pictures there, it's with the yellowish green lighting on. With the lighting and everything off, it's just clear and doesn't look, nearly as nice. But that combined with the sleeve cables they put in there and the other lighting effects, it just looks really, really, it looks fancier than it really is, which is, a nice perk. So you don't have to spend a ton of extra money on a custom cooling solution, because that's always a point of hurt for your wallet if you go for the biggest and baddest there.
Yeah, and it is big and bad. You've got a 1,000 watt PSU. It looks like a modular PSU. You've got dual GTX 1080 Ti's. You've got what is it? Is it the Tenko? Yeah, the 7900X. So this thing rocked the benchmarks, obviously, right?
It did. It performed just as you expect for a fully loaded system, which it smoked everything.
Yeah. NVMe drive, the whole 9 yards. So, it's amazing what these boutique builders are putting together today. And let's shift gears back real quick to the Origin PC that we saw at CES. We actually gave that a Best of CES award, along with the Maingear F131, actually. But let's take a look at the Origin PC. The Millennium PC is their latest generation of desktops, and it's actually also pretty impressive. You've got that one in, Paul. Do you know what the chassis that they went with there? Is it custom, or is it from an off-the-shelf deal from a manufacturer that they tweaked up a little bit?
That one, I'll have to look more into that, but I believe that's their own custom design that they tweaked. It's a little different from the previous years. There's a few different changes to it, but I'm pretty sure that's a custom case. And what they ship it with, I'm not sure if all systems come this way. It might be an option, but they sent tempered glass side panels on the left and right, but they also included a metal side panel if you want to swap one of those out, because depending on how you have the motherboard oriented, you can have it configured 4 different ways. You can have it regular, you can have it inverted, or you can do the same on the other side. So it's a really, really nice case. Like I said, I'll get more into that when I write up the official review, but it is a really nice chassis.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. It's got also full plexiglass sides, or not glass, tempered glass sides rather. Yeah, it's a nice looking case. There's a little door up top that slides back. What is that? Is that a port cover or of some sort?
Yeah, that's a cover. It slides back, and then you have access to the power button, some USB ports, lighting switch, and that good stuff.
Keep things looking neat and clean. Yeah. It's interesting. We get a lot of boutique systems in from guys like Maingear and Origin and others. Whether you even talk about some of the standard pre-built stuff from the big name guys like Dell with Alienware. And the comment we always get, and let's toss this around real quick and then we'll move on to some other things. But the comment we sometimes get when people see these systems, especially when they're configured like this one, like both the Origin and the Xidax system that we got in, with dual GTX 1080 Ti's and $1,000 CPU and 32 gigs of RAM and an NVMe SSD, it's $5,000. And people are like, man, you can save so much money if you build it yourself. And it's like, oh, man, we hear that so much. And I will admit it gets a little on the old side for me because, sure, you could build it yourself if you know how to do it. And maybe you have access to a similar case if you're lucky. But it's going to take a whole lot of expertise with some of the cable routing and certainly some of the specialty cooling we're seeing when you talk about some of the custom cooling solutions out there. What are your thoughts on that, Paul? What do you think about that, Marco? What do you guys think when you hear that line? I mean, there's obviously a market here because the boutique guys are doing really well. They're selling a bunch of these big, expensive, beautiful rigs.
Well, there's a couple of things that set them apart. One, they might be using a custom case, which, like I said, I think Origin is doing. Xidax, that's an off-the-shelf case. So by all means, you could go out and build a system identical to what Xidax did. The difference there is, even though building PCs is relatively easy if you know what you're doing, I think for some people, it's not just about the time and desire to do it, but if you're going to go all out on a rig and you're going to buy, $4,000 worth of hardware, that can be a little intimidating to put all that on your shoulders. What if you put everything together, you hit the power button, and we've all been there, nothing happens. Suddenly you're sitting there troubleshooting, $4,000 or $5,000 worth of hardware versus just being able to call up one of these boutiques and saying, hey, it's not working, fix it,
Right. It all depends on your level of expertise and then certainly your tolerance for pain threshold, right? I mean, yeah, like you say, there's lots of different things. There's incompatibilities you have to be concerned with. There's certainly the warranty side of it, which all of these higher end, better known boutique system builders, stand behind their systems. In the case of the Xidax system, there's a lifetime warranty on components. Origin has an excellent, warranty system as well. Marco, what are your thoughts there? I know you build a lot of custom rigs for friends and family, and you've heard that more than once, but you also bail a lot of folks out of misery when they're, walking down the path themselves, right?
Yeah, I mean, so building a PC today is a lot like using Lego. It's very hard to screw it up, but building one of those crazy custom boutique PCs, that's a whole nother level. Some people don't know how to hide a SATA cable, let alone build something as beautiful as that. And one other wrinkle, which we'll kind of segue into another segment coming up later. Right now, with prices on GPUs because of the crypto mining craze, there's a huge premium on graphics cards, and some of those bigger companies get better pricing. So it's not always cheaper to build yourself today because of what's happening with GPU prices. But these guys, they have expertise and they should be paid for their time and for their art to do it, do that kind of beautiful stuff. And for many people, it's worth not having to deal with the trouble. Just have a professional do it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest with you, I've built in the past, for an example with Maingear, I've built, I actually asked the Maingear guys if I could get one of their Shift chassis, which is an off-the-shelf but modified for their setup, and then with a custom cooler for their setup as well, and then build my own PC in it. And yeah, I configured a really nice system myself. I know what I'm doing. I've been building PCs for years myself, but I damn sure did not have the kind of origami and absolutely immaculate cable management that the guys at Maingear do. I mean, when you do it all day, every day, and that's all you do, you get pretty darn good at it. And, there's materials and workmanship there that the average Joe, even if you know what you're doing, just can't get access to. Marco, you do a pretty darn good job, but I mean, your stuff is super clean. You can eat off it when you build that sucker. But even you probably, if you compare yourself to the guys at Maingear or Origin, do you think you could match up all by yourself?
If I had a stash of the cable combs and all that good stuff for an air cooled system, yeah, I'm confident I can hang. But I absolutely do not have the expertise, at least not on the first try, to pull off some crazy, bent rigid tubing with gorgeous custom paint and custom lighting. There's no way. Like that takes time to build that skill set. So if you, a straight up build with air cooling and just neat cabling, I love to do it. I've been doing it for many years. That kind of custom stuff, no way.
Yeah, it takes time and resources, but interesting stuff. Paul, you're chuckling. Should we have a throwdown with Marco versus the boutique guys?
I think a lot of people would be interested to see that. I'll put my money on Marco on that.
That would be a fun podcast.
That actually would. It actually would. We should think about.
And Maingear is only an hour drive away from me. I could go stop by and have a head to head.
There you go. Throw down with Wallace. That might be tough, man. I don't know. He's got some ninjas over there at that place, and sort of the guys at Origin too. Guys at Origin, by the way, ex Alienware folks, so they know how to build a mean rig as well. Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's move on to the world of mobile a little bit and talk about something that we were fortunate enough to get our hands on. That's very interesting, and it is, of course, it was announced just at the start of CES by Intel, where they stepped out and said Intel 8th gen core mobile processor with integrated on package AMD Radeon RX Vega M graphics, which, when you think about it, we briefly mentioned this, in the announcement last podcast. It sounds like, to quote the immortal words of Bill Murray, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. It's hell's freezing over. AMD and Intel designing a chip. It's, mind boggling. No one ever thought we'd see that, but it's actually real. And it's actually in a couple of notebooks that were on display at CES. And we actually were fortunate enough to get some hands-on time, not just, massaging the keyboard, but actually testing it in a benchmark. And we actually ran, Rise of the Tomb Raider on this machine, and that is a pretty current generation DX12 capable title game engine, and it's pretty rigorous in terms of its graphics workload. It's also a beautiful looking game engine as well, pretty rigorous in terms of its graphics workload. And the Dell XPS 15 2-in-1 convertible that is built with this machine, or built with this chip in the machine, we actually got some time with, and we ran it through that benchmark, and impressively at 1080p at high image quality settings, we were able to pull about 35 frames per second from this chip. Now, when you compare that versus what we would see with Intel integrated HD or UHD 620 graphics in the 8th gen chips, you can't even run Rise of the Tomb Raider on high with integrated Intel UHD 620 graphics. It doesn't. It chokes out. It's out of memory space generally. I was able to actually get one of the machines here in my office to run at medium, and I pulled 8 frames per second, single digits. It was a slideshow. And then we had Chris on the other side, HotHardware, who had an Acer laptop with 8th gen and NVIDIA GeForce MX150 discrete graphics on board. So now a discrete NVIDIA GPU MX150 with 2 gigabytes of GDDR5 By the way, the Radeon Vega M GPU on board the Intel chip has 4 gigabytes of HBM2. So again, the MX150 with 2 gigabytes of GDDR5, that chip and that laptop, the Acer laptop we tested, was able to hit about 23 frames per second at 1080p high image quality settings. So you're talking about north of a 45% performance advantage for the new hybrid chip, and absolutely, way in the rear view, not even in the running for standard integrated. Obviously you're not going to be gaming on much on integrated Intel graphics, but an impressive early showing, and it's very early. I mean, this thing is in pre-production, or the unit we're seeing is pre-production and maybe even prototype level. Impressive stuff. What do you guys think about that? Let's kick it over to Marco, get your early thoughts on it. I didn't expect to see it so strong, but it's absolutely smoking the entry level stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really, really cool. Vega on the desktop had some super stiff competition to deal with when there's really no power limits or thermal limits. You can do some crazy stuff in the desktop, but in a thin and light form factor, working with Intel to develop that slim package, plus that, I think it's 24 or 20 CUs depending on the configuration, right? Seems to be just the right amount of power for that sort of ultra slim form factor to get decent frame rates out of these machines there, where historically there's no way you were playing games like this with those kind of settings. You have to crank everything way down. Now the NVIDIA MX150, that's a nice low power mobile GPU, but even that doesn't really come close to what this latest Vega can do in there. So I'm excited to see what final shipping product does. I think it's going to be very strong. Now, if you want a dedicated big bad boy gaming rig, it's not going to hang with that. But if you want an ultrabook that can also game, and you have the benefits of AMD's GPU drivers and the software expertise, this could be a really cool solution.
Yeah. Intel claims, at least on their slideware that we've seen, and we take their slideware with a grain of salt, just like we do from any manufacturer that has comparative benchmark data. We wouldn't think they'd be blowing smoke, but you want to see it and test it yourself before you lay claim that it's true. But what they're saying is it should be able to exceed as much as sometimes 1.3x a GTX 1050, a GeForce GTX 1050 with 4 gigabytes of GDDR5 memory. So that's an even stouter discrete GPU that this chip can hang with and surpass. They think it's, we're expecting to see somewhere in the order of a 1050 Ti to 1060 level type of performance out of this chip, depending on the game engine and workload, but it's impressive. And they do this as well with some interesting technology. I mean, it's amazing to see. You've got this CPU complex, quad-core CPU. You've got the GPU, which is a larger die than the CPU. And then you've got 4 gigabytes of HBM2 chunk of memory, all on this, slightly longer, bigger chip. It's a good-sized chip. But it's connected with an EMIB, or embedded interconnect. I forget what. Tell me what the acronym stands for, buddy, Marco.
Oh, I don't remember what it stands for.
I should have had that on the tip of my tongue. Shame on me. But yeah, the EMIB is this interconnect, this high-speed interconnect between all the components of all the different subsystems, the GPU, the RAM, and the CPU. And they basically brought all that high-speed connectivity real close on chip, which gets them some really good latency characteristics, I would think, as a result. And so, yeah, there's efficiencies here and, performance that's initially, especially, drivers are still being tweaked, firmware is still being tweaked. I mean, I'm sure they're wringing more performance out of this thing. Initially looked pretty good. Paul, would this kind of thing get you to give up your boat anchor gaming desktop replacement notebook?
Well, no, because I love my boat anchor, but there's definitely a market. A little while back, a friend of mine was asking me for advice on a gaming laptop. He'd been out of the loop for quite some time, and he gave me his budget and all that. So I was sending him examples of, what would be some good options. And at one point, he's like, Paul, I'm an adult. I want something that looks, professional. And there's really not a whole lot out there if you want a game. I mean, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, if you're buying a laptop or an ultra portable that can game, it looks like a gaming machine. So I think that's one of the big sells of this, is that you're getting a premium 2-in-1 ultrabook, whatever you want to call it, that has some gaming chops. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah. If you look at the Dell machine, specifically the XPS 15 2-in-1, John, I don't know if you can get that back up on the display, but the XPS 15 2-in-1 is a full redesign of the XPS 15 platform. It's gorgeous, and so it's a thinner and lighter XPS 15 footprint, if you will. It's sort of the same footprint, but it's thinner and lighter. Has a 360-degree hinge, so now you get the full 360-degree swing from multiple different modes if you use that. It also comes with a company pen that you can, a stylus pen that you can, use it as in tablet form and annotate on the screen. It has a newly revamped display. It's a 400 nits panel now with 400 nits, 15-inch, 15.6-inch panel, IGZO display with something like 15,000 to 1 contrast ratio. It's no joke. It's a beautiful machine. There's the chip there, just swung by on video there if you saw it.
Based on an all-new Intel 8th generation Core i7 processor.
Okay, we're piping in audio. There you go. That's me teeing up the chip. So yeah, impressive stuff. There's the chip right there. The machine's beautiful, and yeah, you don't have to have a big boat anchor necessarily to hit playable frame rates now in real current gen game engines, which is good stuff. Obviously, Intel is trying to take on head off NVIDIA in their sort of entry level discrete notebook graphics segment. Marco, you think they got a threat there?
Yeah, I mean, it's only one product when NVIDIA's got a whole lineup, and with Max-Q, you can still get some pretty nice, thin, relatively performant gaming notebooks. So they need something to compete in that arena, and this does that, at least towards the lower end, like 1060 Max-Q. At least it should when it finally hits the market. So it's something Intel needed to do. It's, I think, a really cool product, and it's going to enable some really nice form factors. Like that XPS 15 2-in-1 is a gorgeous machine. You would never know it's got that kind of a gaming horsepower under the hood. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, it'll be interesting also to see how many design wins they get with this. We've got some early traction from with Intel and AMD on this chip for companies. Certainly Dell, the XPS 15 2-in-1. HP stepped up with the Spectre X360 15 2-in-1 as well. If we see Lenovo and others stepping into the fray with this, Acer, all those guys, Asus, you'll know it's something that not only is has a value proposition for the OEMs from a design standpoint, so that they can productize with it, but it's also, you can also hit serious volume production with it. So that's going to be the tell. I guess I'm wondering what yields are like, with that chip. It's a pretty complex chip. You've got a CPU, a GPU, and a chunk of memory, and that EMIB, embedded multi-interconnect bridge. That's no joke. And I wonder how well they yield. Certainly we'll never hear that directly, I'm sure, from Intel, but I wonder how well those chips yields and if they can hit serious volume with them. It seems like a premium.
If Dell and HP are on board, they've got yield.
Yeah, you would think those are. I mean, you're talking one SKU each, but yeah, those guys can move volume, no question about it.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, let's move on to the land of cryptocurrency and the roller coaster ride these days. That is Bitcoin. That is certainly all the other cryptocurrencies, Ethereum, that Bitcoin, frankly, with its volatility, has taken along with it. Actually, we had a headline up: Bitcoin crashes to below 10,000 amid exchange uncertainty, nearly halving its recent highs, cutting in half its recent highs. I think it topped out at just 17,000 or just over 17,000 at one point, and it plummeted below 10,000. I think today it's back up above 11,000. We knew, guys, this was going to be a bubbly, volatile sort of thing. This new frontier of cryptocurrency. Marco, what are your thoughts there? I know you did some homework on this thing, and our folks. Is this a a wise, I guess, prudent investment vehicle for folks, or is it like hang on to your butts kind of thing?
Oh, it's hang on to your butts right now. If I had a bunch of money, I would throw it in there because I think short term, there's big bucks to be made. It's super volatile. If you don't have the constitution to handle the kind of swings that are coming, relatively quickly, then obviously don't mess with it, or you're going to end up jumping out of a window. But if you have the guts to stick with it for a while, I think there's big bucks to be made until governments start to screw it up. So right now it's the wild, wild west. There's all these different, altcoins. There's the two big ones, Bitcoin and Ethereum, where, Bitcoin is kind of right now, I think you can make money because it's going to go back up. Ethereum, I think, is going to be poised for that hockey stick once all of the big banks start manipulating as well. So I don't know, man. I hate what it's doing to the PC hardware community. I hate that GPUs that should cost 200 are going for 500, and GPUs that should cost 600 are going for 1200 right now. Yeah. But it is what it is. There's a use for GPUs right now that can make people money. You could literally just, if you're not gaming, flip your machine on to do some mining and maybe earn a few bucks, maybe get lucky. You mine an altcoin that takes off and you get rich. So who knows? I mean, I wish I dove in because it's pretty cool. And I think this kind of threatens the establishment, and these cryptocurrencies could topple some, I don't know what the right wording is, but could topple some markets that need to be toppled to get all the corruption out. But I don't know. Scary stuff.
Shakes up the status quo, no question about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it is very interesting in the way it works. The whole blockchain thing, and now you're talking about transactions take a certain amount of processing, and a collective network of machines that the miners, the folks that are using their GPU to mine cryptocurrency. You're processing the transactions, and that's how this whole thing works. It's kind of an ecosystem, a symbiotic ecosystem in and of itself. The volatility is frightening. I think you're crazy if you're doing anything but, play money. Most folks will have their retirement accounts and, college funds and other investment vehicles, and traditional stuff. And then they've probably got a play account that they might play some stocks with in the market, right? That makes sense. If you're looking at cryptocurrency as a long-term value proposition, I don't know, you might be in for some pretty serious agita along the way with the ups and downs. And if you're short-term, you're out of your mind. If you got to get your money out and you're going to need to have a use for that, your kid's going off to college or whatever, or I don't know, maybe it's whatever that expense needs to be. You're crazy. I mean, you might try parlaying a little bit of it into, kind of like playing the lottery or going to Vegas. But yeah, you can lose your shirt real quick too.
Absolutely.
But it's exciting. It's fun to watch. There's huge community around it, and the processing power and the GPUs. Paul, are you a cryptocurrency maven yet?
No, but like Marco, I wish I would have got into it. When Bitcoin was selling for a fraction of a cent. I think we all do.
I know, right?
But that's the trick now is, there's a ton of altcoins out there, and there might be another one that balloons in that way. So, if you have a few dollars you want to play around with and you want to gamble on one, have at it.
Yeah, I think check your rates for power, what your power cost is in your area, and it may make sense in your off times, or when you're idle, or when your desktop is literally doing desktop chores. It may make sense to let your machine do a little bit of mining on the side and see what you can make at it. And it's fairly easy to set up with the wallet and the different mining apps. But yeah, it's exciting, and I don't think the volatility gets fixed or is solved anytime soon. I think it's sort of going to be perennially part of the process, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right, we're getting down to the last few minutes of the show. We should probably wrap up a little bit and talk about the last few days of our Lenovo HotHardware and Lenovo Hot Holiday Giveaway, which we started over the Christmas New Year's break, segued into CES, and we are finishing up now as we get closer to its completion date. Marco, details. We're giving away all kinds of toys here. Great stuff from Lenovo. What do you know?
We are, and I know a lot. We have 3 very cool prizes up for grabs. Super easy to win. You literally just come by the site, like a couple of Facebook pages, and just comment, make some friends, get our conversations going on the feature reviews and news articles. First prize, a beautiful Lenovo Yoga 920 14-inch Core i7-8550U based machine. Second prize, a really funky Cylon-looking Lenovo Legion Y720 Cube with a Core i5 and Radeon RX 480 graphics in that guy. And third prize is a really fun Star Wars Jedi Challenges AR kit. We have a review posted of this kit. You literally stick a compatible smartphone inside the headset. It comes with a really cool lightsaber and a motion sensor, that kind of a little puck that goes on the ground to track your motion and your position. And you can fight some of the legendary Star Wars characters inside the universe. It's a really cool kit. Could not be any easier to win. We give away lots of cool stuff. Come by the site, get in on the action, and while you're there, check out all our articles.
Of course, read them all. You've got nothing else better to do, right? Yeah,
of course not.
It's good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, stop by HotHardware.com. That's where we're located. Make sure you check out the best of CES 2018 coverage we've got up there now, as well as some of these benchmark numbers with the Dell XPS 15 2-in-1 with that hybrid AMD Intel chip. And lots of good stuff there. We cover all the latest products daily, weekly, all week long. And you can find us at twitter.com/HotHardware, facebook.com/HotHardware, youtube.com/HotHardware, or HotHardware vids. G+, we're everywhere. Paul, you want to thank the viewers for stopping by?
Yes, and some parting words of wisdom. Do not take the Tide Pod Challenge.
No. Gronk says no, unequivocally no.
No.
I got the best piece of advice the other day. You want to hear it quick, because I know we got to go? Best piece of advice. If you're in a public bathroom, no matter how good the hand soap smells, don't walk out smelling your fingers.
And on that bright note, we will bid you adieu. Thanks for stopping by, everybody.